Hey, welcome to our next video blog looking at Morpheus software. I've got my co-host with me, Sean Jabros. Sean, thanks for joining again.
Yep. How you doing, Galvin?
Hey, it's we're recording this on a Friday, so that means things are really good because a weekend's about to hit. So that's always good.
That is nice.
You know what? One day, what we need to do, you got your guitars hanging on the wall in the background. Maybe we need to get you recording a little riff that we can use as an intro to.
Let's do a little intro. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll put that down for a future show and use that as our intro music for the show. Anyway, we're up to Morpheus v8.0.9. Probably by the time this goes out, there's a good chance we'll be up to v.8.0.10. But in 8.0.9, we had some pretty cool stuff that we want to look at today. So what are we going to look at in the demo we're going to do?
Yeah, so we're going to look at the new anti-affinity and affinity rules that are available, and basically just walk through how they work, how they operate, and how to get them all set up.
Okay, and I know you told me when we were chatting that you're going to run this in your Morpheus Enterprise environment, which I think we've had a lot of people that look at VM Essentials and think, okay, if I want to do this, I have to run VM Essentials. I think talk a little bit about the fact that everything that's in VM Essentials actually is already in Morpheus Enterprise as well.
Correct. Yeah. So the VM Essentials package overall is more of a packaging of the limited features of what the manager is capable of and the HVM hypervisor cluster capability. So with the VM Essentials package, you get the VM Essentials manager, which is basically the Morpheus Enterprise manager with a bunch of the capabilities stripped out of it, and the ability to connect to your vCenter and provision your own HVM clusters. So the things that we're going to show today are all doable in both the VM Essentials manager and the Morpheus Enterprise manager.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, I know when we talk about our VM Essentials manager, the VME manager, it sits in Ubuntu. What is your environment? Are you using Ubuntu, or can it be anything?
Yeah, so the Morpheus Enterprise Manager that I'm running, it does run on Ubuntu, but the Enterprise Manager could be put in just about any Linux distro. That is independent of the hypervisor solution, which requires Ubuntu to be the backend for it.
Okay. Well, why don't we jump into the demo, and why don't you show us what we're going to be looking at here? Show us what you got here, Sean.
Alrighty. So what we're looking at here is my Morpheus Enterprise Manager. You can tell just anytime you're looking at any of my videos, the dark mode one is always my Enterprise Manager. The one with light mode is my VM Essentials Manager. The reason I wanted to do it in here was just to kind of hammer home that idea that regardless of which manager you're looking at, this capability is available to you, provided you have an HVM cluster, obviously. So under our infrastructure clusters section, we do have a couple of demo videos out there that explains this. I've got my cluster right here. I've got one host that's down right now, so you can ignore that warning. We're still up and running with 3 good hosts. But under our resources tab on the cluster, we have this spot called affinity groups, and you can create either keep together or keep separate groups here. So on here, I can say, okay, I want to keep some separate, and we'll just call this one demo group. And I can go ahead and put whatever servers I have in here that I want to be able to see. So I've got some VMs in here that I would like to be able to separate, but I'm not going to create this group just yet. What I'm going to go do is show you what I have out here and what I have been deploying out. So I've got some Ubuntu VMs that are just in existence. I spun them up. I've got this single VM, but another thing that I did prior to setting this demo up is I actually deployed a couple of instances with multiple VMs inside of it to kind of give you an idea of a very useful way to use this feature. So in this particular instance, I've deployed out 3 VMs inside that single instance, and then each of those is actually attached to an affinity group. So if I go back to my clusters and I go into the affinity groups, you probably saw I've got 2 affinity groups already created, my lovers and my haters. My lovers here, this is a keep together group. So I've got these 3 servers that I want to keep them all on the same host at all times. And I've got my haters, and I have that first instance we were just looking at, the 3 VMs that I want to keep separate. So these ones should never be running on the same host, or to best effort. So now, if we were to go look at those instances, this instance here is my haters, and all of those should be running on separate hosts. You can see that they are right here. If I go back to the other, we go look at my lovers, these ones will be running on the same host. Now, something that'll happen if you wanted to, say, like relocate one of these machines, you go into the machine and you can manage the placement on the individual VM, not at the instance level. I've got it pinned right here. I could set it to auto, and I can change over to another host. This particular VM will move over onto another host, but since I set it to auto, what'll happen is, since all 3 of these VMs are in the same affinity group to keep them together, we're going to look at which host most of those are already running on with the available resources, and this VM will actually end up getting moved back onto the host where the others are. If I wanted to force this move, then what I could do is pin, like you saw there, if I manage placement here, and I pin it, then all of the other hosts in this affinity, or all the other VMs in this affinity group, will follow. Same thing kind of happens when you are in the haters, the keep apart, the keep separate. I could migrate one of these VMs onto the same host. So let's say we'll take this guy here, and we'll move him onto 05. We'll pin this one, right? So 01 is the one we're going to pin on 05. And that's going to start moving. So we should have a thing here showing that. There it goes. And what is going to happen now, since I pinned this VM onto that host, once the sync happens on the cluster, which happens every 5 minutes, we're going to reevaluate those rules, and the VM that was on this host that I'm moving it to will go get shifted onto another host that is available. And right now, since I only have 3 hosts available in my cluster, then we'll see it get moved onto the host that this VM01 moved off of. So it was on 6. So we should see HVM02 move to host 6 once the cluster syncs. And to save myself and all of us the trouble, did my final host finally come back up? Hey, that's convenient. So it might move to 8. We'll see. Love when things go right in a demo. I'm just going to refresh the cluster now. See the last sync. I don't have my clock in front of me, but it was at 11:30. So let this sync, and once that's done, it should start moving those VMs around again. One nice thing while we wait for that to sync is if I go to provision a new VM, let's do, I'm a sucker for Ubuntu, and that's kind of what we're focused on with our stuff right now. When I get into this configuration, go to deploy this out, select my plan, all the normal stuff you can do from your deployment wizard, that's all well and good. But one thing that you get on your deployment now is this affinity group option. So in here, I can actually say, okay, I want this one to go into the haters group by default. And this works regardless. So I'm deploying an instance. This is a single node Ubuntu VM. Let's say I'm deploying a cluster or adding a node to a cluster. It'll be added to that group, and it will fall prey to those affinity rules as you spin things up. So I'm going to turn off backups, because these are all ephemeral to me. Cattle, not pets. Go ahead and let that one run out. And you see this one's still deploying, but we got a few that have deployed. Maybe like, okay, how do we get these VMs into an affinity group? Well, in our cluster, we can just go back to that resource section like I was doing initially. And we will edit this. Actually, we'll add some to the lovers group. Okay, so let's see. PC, yeah, here we go. Get our Ubuntu 1. And actually, probably easier if we just search Ubuntu. Yep, and we'll put 2 in there as well. Go ahead and save the changes. Now, the changes are made, but again, it's going to take another sync for that to actually take place. We'll go ahead and refresh that and go back to our provisioning. We'll take a look at this and see if our VMs are where they're supposed to be. Yep, so 5, 6, and 7 now. This one being pinned to host 05, we will have to unpin it. Let's say we wanted to put that host into maintenance mode. We have to unpin it. But what we're doing is we're guaranteeing this one runs on that host and the rest can move around as needed. And as that affinity group grows, it kind of keeps this one locked in place. Let's say you needed to keep your main host off or one of your clusters on a single host. You could do something like this.
Yeah. Hey, so a couple questions as you're walking through this. So I'm looking at some people that have been talking about this feature, and somebody, when they configured it, it didn't work, and they got asked, well, have you configured dynamic placement enabled on your cluster? Is that a requirement? And where would somebody find dynamic placement?
Yep. Actually, very, very good point. So on the cluster itself, you come to the clusters section, and we're going to edit that right here. You do need to have that turned on. Otherwise, it can't move stuff around. It doesn't know to do so. So that's where you do that, directly on the cluster setting itself.
So first place to check is somebody starts to try to, can you even configure an affinity group if you don't have dynamic placement turned on in your cluster?
I believe at the moment you probably could. I haven't tested it. I've always just had dynamic placement on because I would prefer to my stuff to move as needed.
So first place somebody should check if affinity doesn't appear to them to be working is go make sure they've turned on dynamic placement on the cluster setting.
Yep. And that was a decision you made at provisioning of the cluster, right? That's something, a selection you can make, but then always go double check here.
And just again, another point, I think it's by default it's off, so you got to make sure you turn it on.
I believe so it is. I believe it is default off now, yeah.
Yeah. And you said the rules get applied, is it every 5 minutes? So once somebody's made sure they've done this, they've got their affinity, anti-affinity groups in place, they've made sure they have dynamic placement, within 5 minutes they should start to see something happen.
Correct, yeah, and it's the 5-minute rule there is based on the cluster sync. So whenever the cluster itself syncs, we reevaluate the rules for affinity. So,
okay.
And you can always just refresh that. You can always check as well. Here's my last sync time. But if I wanted to force it to sync again, I just come into the cluster, hit refresh, and it'll start syncing it up again. So if I made changes and I want to see them in effect right away, that's how you do it. You saw it there. I just walked away from it, but it takes about 30 seconds for the cluster to sync. Depending on the environment, larger clusters might take a little bit longer, depending on how stressed your environment is. Come look at this one here that we put into the lovers group. It's also on 07 with all of these. So if I was to move, again, like this VM here, like 02, it's also now on 07 because I added it to the lovers group. If I go, got to do it from the VM, not the instance level. And the reason for that, I actually had a question on that one earlier today. The reason that you can't manage placement at the instance level is specifically for this situation that I was showing here. So in this instance, I've got 3 nodes. And let's say I want to keep them all apart. Actually, this is the one with the lovers. We'll go back to the haters. This is 3 VMs inside of this one particular instance, and they're all haters. So if I wanted to move the instance, what would happen is I'd have to select a host, and then all 3 of these would get moved to that host. And then we'd have to wait for a sync for the anti-affinity to take effect. So really, when you're doing affinity rules, you're not doing it at the instance level because, again, this could be a service. An instance is a service. So it could be a SQL cluster or something like that where you have multiple nodes inside of it. You want to do the placement and the affinity on individual VMs. And that's why you're able to select that at provisioning time, too. You provision out that cluster. You have your anti-affinity group created that says, hey, keep all these guys separate so that if one of my hosts goes down and one of my VMs goes down that's a part of this database cluster, I still have the rest of my nodes up.
Lots happening, and again, we got the next version coming, so people should watch for that. Let me make a couple plugs that come to my mind, Sean. Number one, I think a good idea would be to start a thread on our VM Essentials forum I'm going to retake that. We're going to do it on the Morpheus Enterprise forum because there's maybe a few less conversations happening there, so easier to find. I'm going to start a thread that will be an Ask Me Anything on our video blog thread. And if you're watching this and you want to ask a question that we'll answer on the next video, leave that question on that thread. Go to the Morpheus Enterprise HPE community channel, and I will start a forum discussion, and you leave your question there. For people, vote them up if you like it as a kudo the question, and we'll maybe take those on the next one as I Ask Me Anything kind of a session. So that's number one. Let's see, number two is we got the next version coming, so people should watch for that. And then number three, I guess I'll remind people, is we do have a community edition of Morpheus Enterprise. And if you're interested in that, there's a thread on the community page that tells you what to do there. Basically, email me and we'll look and see if you're eligible to get it. Hey, thanks again. Great to see you and great to have another real-time demo. Love these real-time demos that work well, so thanks for doing that today.
Yeah, it's a rare state when everything goes as planned, so we'll call it a good day, and it's a good start to the weekend.
There you go. Hey, thanks a lot, Sean. We'll talk to you again next time.
Yep. Thanks, Calvin.
Here's a link to that community forum post that we talked about where you can leave your questions that Sean and I will take on our next video blog. Here's a playlist of some helpful HPE Morpheus software videos that I think you should watch. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that now. Thanks for joining us.